Hey guys, Autism Fitness founder Eric Chessen leading the movement for movement, bringing you another edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday training. And we're going to be talking about how time relates to our athletes' programs and why it often, not always, but often takes longer for our athletes to get into that Goldilocks zone of great programming. And what I mean by that is that the program is sufficient to increase their strength, motor skills, and start generalizing those capabilities to their real lives. So, of course, in Autism Fitness, we use the PAC profile that's physical, adaptive, and cognitive to understand, to assess, to address the skills that are going to mean the most with respect to fitness programming, to the way that we are coaching and communicating with our athletes, and to provide positive behavior support all throughout their training journey. So a couple things that we need to consider with respect to time. And I talk about this a lot. Number one is going to be priorities. Prioritizing fitness as a life skill activity for our athletes, regardless of whether this is their first session or their 1,000th session. It's something that we want to schedule in, otherwise it's not going to happen most of the time. So the priority thing is what's going to create fitness and exercise as a habit. If we're consistent with it, our athletes are showing up, or you as a coach, as a parent provider, are slating that time for fitness and getting it in however many times a week you are planning. So whether it's once or twice or even 4 times a week, that stays consistent. That's going to be a big deal. So consistency and time have a clear relationship with each other. You're building it into the schedule, so it is happening. Now, having the right program, of course, is a really important component of this, and that's what we do through the Autism Fitness Certification. When we talk about time, there's also the consideration that a lot of our athletes, and this is common among many individuals on the autism spectrum or who are neurodivergent, are going to have some challenges with respect to building confidence and being comfortable in the fitness environment or with the exercises themselves. So this can take a few sessions. This can take 3, 4, 5 sessions for an athlete to acclimate to that environment, to the coach, to the exercises. So whereas oftentimes with a neurotypical individual who is already motivated in the gym with their coach or with their trainer or with their own program, wherever they're getting it, they are going to be ready from day 1 or day 2. They are going to acclimate more quickly. However, many of our autism and neurodivergent athletes are going to require a longer period of habituation to that environment because it may be overstimulating. They may take longer to get used to the confines. Is it a big space? Are there echoes? Are there a lot of people around? Even if there aren't a lot of people around, are there people moving around? Are there sights, sounds, things that might be interesting? If you're working in a typical gym situation, is there a lot of equipment around? Is there a lot of noise? Is there a lot of music? Some of these things are complete no-goes for our athletes, and it's going to be too overstimulating, and they're not going to have the capability to acclimate to it. So the environment is really important. On the other side, even if we have an environment that is low stim, that is appropriate for our athlete, it still may take them 2 or 3 or more sessions in order to feel comfortable and confident in that area. So we need a longer time, it's almost on time delay, for our athletes in order for them to feel comfortable in that situation, and then they can focus and then they can perform more and better exercises or perform more of and better performance of those particular exercises. Getting into the exercise performance, that's another big thing with the time factor. So many of our autism and neurodivergent life skill athletes are going to have issues with kinesthetic awareness and motor control and strength deficits also. Oftentimes, this is defined or diagnosed as low tone or maybe poor trunk control or poor motor patterning. I've seen all of these on intake forms. And those are kind of catch-all terms. What I mean by that is they're very general, relating to the fact that there are strength and movement deficits for that particular individual. And by the way, this spans age ranges too. So it's not as though these motor skills and strength deficits just clear up after a certain age, unless we have some type of intervention, i.e. strength training. And that's why this is the foundation of our autism fitness programming. So for athletes who have both that kinesthetic awareness issue or a deficit in motor planning, and they have that underlying strength deficit, it's going to take longer for them to become more capable and more independent with each one of those exercises. The take home there with respect to programming is that whereas with a neurotypical 25-year-old, it may take them a few sets in order to have good kinesthetic awareness, mind-muscle connection with a cable row or with a squat or with a push-up. Whereas for many of our neurodivergent athletes, it could take them 6, 8, 10, 12, I'm just making these numbers up, but they relate to a lot of the athletes that I've worked with and probably a lot of the athletes that you serve or will serve in the future also. So we need more time with our athletes with those same exercises in order to get them to what we refer to as standard performance, where they can do the exercise safely, independently, and at a capability level that is really going to improve strength and stability and increase that lean mass so that that athlete is overall healthier and more independent and capable in their own life. So these are big deals because rather than look at time as just an automatic factor here, we have to add in how is this athlete relating to the situation? How are they relating to the environment? How are they relating to the coaching? And then how are they performing also? So comparatively between the neurotypical and the neurodivergent athlete, neurodivergent athletes on average are going to need a lot more time with each exercise in order to be more independent with it, because we need to build up their kinesthetic awareness, we need to build up their strength and motor planning, and that's only going to happen, coming full circle, with that consistency in programming as well. So physically, our athletes need a lot more time and a lot more volume, meaning practice, sets, and repetitions with each exercise so that they become more capable. And of course, we know that this is not always, or should know, this is not always going to be a completely linear process. So from week to week, we might see small differences, whether positive or less so, with our athletes' ability to focus and perform. I've had plenty of athletes who have 3 or 4 or 5 sessions where they are really improving, and then that 6th session, either the athlete is dysregulated or for some reason their kinesthetic awareness and their performance is off. It happens for everybody, but we may see a distinct difference in capability from one week to another week with some of our neurodivergent athletes. Another thing that happens is, when we have adolescents who are going into their teen years, we have hormonal changes and we have structural changes too. So increased body mass and bone length is often going to be a contributing factor to the temporary breakdown in mechanics or performance of those exercises for those athletes. So the takeaway here is to be keenly aware not just of time for the time's sake, but the fact that these are going to be real factors in how we program for our autism and neurodivergent athletes, because we're not just looking at a 6 to 8 to 12 week performance range. We're looking at that particular individual and what they're coming in with respect to their physical capability, their adaptive or motivation and on-task performance, and then with relation to cognitive capability, their understanding of the exercise, their kinesthetic awareness, how we're coaching and communicating everything to that athlete. So some of the takeaways here are start early and start often, so these things become habits or a lifestyle for these athletes, so that fitness becomes a foundation of their lives. Being consistent is an absolute necessity, both for building that routine, but also to increase the physical performance for that athlete. And also being able to assess that athlete's current capabilities so that we're not giving them too little of a stimulus in terms of the exercise, meaning that it's too easy and it's not going to create a training effect. And also be very wary of giving the athlete too challenging a variation of that exercise where we're going to see compensatory movement. That's what I mean by the Goldilocks zone of training. We want the right environment, the appropriate coaching, a program that makes sense for that particular athlete with respect to where they are right now in their physical capabilities for each exercise, and gradually progress, knowing that is not always going to be a 100% linear, like up and up and up and up. There are going to be some off days, there are going to be some really on days, but over time, we're going to see improvements in performance in all three of those areas of ability, because we are meeting that athlete where they are at, we understand what they need both generally and in the moment, and we are using exercise protocols that are valid and are appropriate for that particular athlete. So where does that leave us? Well, where does that leave you? I'd love to know how this influences your programming, if it gets you to think a little bit about how you can improve the programs, whether fitness programs in the home, in the clinic, in the gym, in school, for your autism and neurodivergent athletes. I'd love to know. Put them in the comments below. And of course, if you're ready to join the Movement for Movement and become an Autism Fitness Certified Pro, well, head on over to autismfitness.com. You can download the course syllabus, or you can register and begin your coursework right away, and then meet me or one of our other Master Pros for your full day, hands-on, feet-on, brains-on training that you and your athletes deserve. I'm Autism Fitness founder Eric Chessen, leading the Movement for Movement. Thank you for watching.